You don't know, you better ask somebody. You listening to the Power Movement.
Welcome to the Powell Movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and this week I'm stepping back to the first podcast I ever did. My guest on the show is Sean Pettit, and he is the first guest that I ever had when I had a show on Powder Magazine. Sean was one of those child prodigies who was able to take the ski world by storm at age 11, and he's never looked back until now. Sean's career has taken a turn sideways. He's now focusing a lot of his time on snowboarding, and people seem to be taking notice. So how this podcast is going to work this week is I took a journey back into time and I re-edited 15 minutes of my original podcast with Sean. It's amazing how bad that first podcast sounds to me when I listen to it today, so it was nice to clean it up. What I'm going to do is deliver you the important information regarding Sean's early career, and then Sean and I pick back up where we left off for the rest of the podcast. Before we get into it, I want to ask you to follow me on Instagram at The Powell Movement. And this week and every week throughout the next couple of months, I'm going to be giving away a pair of Spy sunglasses each week. To win them, check out my promoted Instagram post for Sean Pettit that comes out this Monday. Tag 3 friends who will like the podcast in the comments, and I will randomly select someone who commented and send them a pair of Spy Discord White Wall sunglasses. If you don't want to comment on Instagram, you can always head over to thepowellmovement.com and sign up for my newsletter. Those who do will be entered into a drawing on November 1st for another pair of Spy sunglasses. That's what I have for you. If you have anything for me, please email me at mike@thepowellmovement.com. I will get back to you. Finally, I want to thank my amazing sponsors for making the show happen. They are Evo, Rescue Water, the 10 Barrel Brewery, Outdoor Research, and Spy Optic. Please use the codes in their ads and buy gear. And now, let's talk to Sean Pettit. You and I met up when you were probably 11, I think.
I think you're pretty much right on the button there, 11 years old.
Yeah, I think you had just moved from Quebec and you were at Whistler, and your career took off, I think, once you moved to Whistler. How did that progress so fast?
You know, it's funny because I was kind of laying it out on a timeline and realized myself how fast it happened when I realized when I put it into this timeline. When I was younger, it seemed like it happened over a long period of time, but in all reality, I mean, we moved here and then within a year or two, we were being noticed on Whistler Blackcomb and almost immediately got sponsored by Oakley and K2 and got logo slapped on us right away. And I don't think I realized how quickly that happened until I actually looked back, not just recently, and saw that.
You moved to Whistler in 99 and then immediately, I'm sure, started following the pros at Whistler Mountain, and that's kind of how you got recognized?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was the deal. I think park skiing became really hot then because it was something so new and no one had ever seen skiers go in the park. I didn't realize that I was out of the very beginning stages of that in the new skiing world. I was just following these dudes around that were good, and sure enough, their wake made us noticeable.
So who were the people that you were following around when you first got to Whistler?
Well, at the time, it was myself, Callum, and Kai Peterson. As soon as me and Callum, my brother, had moved to Whistler, we pretty much became really good friends with Kai. And then pretty much our crew, we'd follow around Chris Turpin. He was kind of the Grom ringleader, and we just bug him all day, every day, and follow him around and get him to, do stuff for us, and we try to copy him.
Back then, it was a different Sean Pettit, I would think. When you got on the mountain, it was you wanted to be skiing from bell to bell every single day of the week. Didn't matter the conditions. That probably changes as you get older and you start going on heli trips and have budgets and experience a different world of skiing.
For sure, back then it was, I was in school 5 days a week, and I couldn't wait till Saturday and Sunday just to go ski on the weekend during the winter time. And then, holidays, stuff like that. I just couldn't wait to make sure that we were there, from when the mountain opened to when the mountain closed. Yeah, now it's a bit of a different story. Now, you get spoiled. I got spoiled with helicopters and these trips around the world to only where the snow is falling and, the best snow conditions at the time. We're pretty much there at all times. So I get a little spoiled, and sometimes now I just really pick and choose my days and try to still keep it exciting.
Well, you and Cal were really lucky. Your mom, Deb, is an amazing woman, and she used to pull you out of school on powder days from what I remember. And I'd talk to her. I'd be like, oh, Sean at school. And she'd be like, no, I let Shawnee stay home today. We got a foot of snow. And you'd be able to ski. I mean, you say you're in school 5 days a week, but I would think it was 4 if you kind of averaged it out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we were supposed to be in school 5 days a week, but yeah, in the wintertime, we'd have these rules set that if it snowed enough and you wake up and you're so excited because it snowed overnight, you're not going to go to school. And that was kind of our household rules. I think my mom knew exactly what was going on. I think she knew exactly what was happening when she realized how much me and my brother liked to ski.
She picked up her whole life and moved it to British Columbia so you guys would have a big playground. Most parents don't do that for their kids, but your mom had a big part in making that happen for you.
Oh, 100%. She sacrificed a lot. She had this whole life out east in the Ottawa area, and that's where our whole family was, and she knew nobody in BC, but she just made the executive decision that we are going to leave this place out east and we are going to move to British Columbia because I know that there is just room for better life outside the city and in BC, Whistler particularly, where she had been to before she moved me and my brother out here, but just realized that she was willing to make those sacrifices to have us grow up in such a better place here in Whistler. She made some big sacrifices once we got here, though. I mean, we lived in basement suites for years. She'd be working 2 jobs. During the day, she'd be teaching skiing, and at night, she'd be at a restaurant job. She'd bring home leftovers from the restaurant she'd be working at. Sometimes that was dinner. But at the time, that wasn't really, we weren't really thinking about that. We were just thinking about going skiing. I think that was really all that was on our minds.
You don't think of Sean Pettit of having any struggles, because when I think of your career, I won't say everything came easy to you, but people came to you because you were so talented and because you were so level-headed. And I don't think that there was any struggle in Sean's life. And then you think about that, you grew up, and I don't want to say grew up poor, but your mom needed to work 2 jobs to be able to allow you and Cal to play on the mountain all day long. And that's an amazing sacrifice, and really probably the most important decision to Sean Pettit's pro ski career is Deb Hillary moving from the East Coast to the West Coast and getting you guys on a big mountain.
Yeah, I think that is my ski career for sure. I mean, I always think of what if we stayed back east? I'd be good at something else, but I don't think it'd be skiing.
At what point do you get your first sponsor? I think it was Oakley at 11, so I just kind of spoiled that.
Yeah, it was actually funny how that all unfolded. You know, just like any other day, me and my brother are chasing each other around the park and around the mountain. Back then, there was no like, oh, let's go filming with your buddies. Like, nobody had cell phones or anything. This is like early 2000s.
Okay.
And so there was no thinking of trying to post something on the internet or anything like that. We just didn't have that. Every day was cruising around. And one day me and my brother would cruise around the park all day and get down to the bottom. And then there's these 2 other kids that are older. You know, they're like late teens. And, you know, me and my brother are, you know, I'm 11, he's 13. These 2 kids come up to us and they're huffing and puffing. They had been like trying to hunt us down, like for, they said like a couple of runs, chasing us around and chased us down the mountain. Finally, when we got to the bottom and stopped, they said that, oh, like, you guys are good. Like, who are you? And like, you know, we're just little kids. Like, I'm Sean. Yeah, like, I can't really remember exactly how that went down, but pretty much they said, what's like your contact or something? I think my brother gave them like our home phone number or something, maybe, or my mom's email, something like that. But anyways, they ended up being relatives of a girl who worked for Oakley at the time. And so just through that little connection, that's how that all started. And then really shortly later, I mean, I remember going to a little Oakley night in Whistler and meeting some people, and pretty much that was it. And I got slapped on a couple logos and some goggles and some outerwear, and very shortly after there was a contract, and I didn't even know what a contract was. I didn't even know what a professional skier was. I was just kind of going along with it and took it for what it was.
You were probably very easy to take advantage of back then.
Oh yeah, 100%. You could do anything. Free pair of goggles and a free jacket or something, I would have been more than happy, and there was lots more than that at the time. Before that, it was all hand-me-downs and whatever we could gather up from garage sales and stuff like that. That was our outerwear before.
You were 12 when K2 picked you up, and I know Turpin was involved in that. How did K2 evolve in your eyes?
That happened again really quickly too. It was during the TELUS World Ski and Snowboard Festival, big event in Whistler, especially back then. That's where, everyone kind of shined and made their statements of skiing and snowboarding. And I remember I wasn't old enough to enter the competition. And I'm pretty sure it was Chris Turpin who was like pushing me to poach the course. So I poached the half pipe and I did a run with the half pipe. And I loved riding the half pipe at that time. And then pretty much after that, K2 signed me. And then, Mike Goot from K2 at that time pretty much said, we are sold and let's get this guy in the program. So it's funny because the year before I got on K2, I did one of the local competitions. They were called the Sprite Series on Blackcomb in the park. And I had won the competition. I came first and I won a pair of atomic skis. And these atomic skis were like twice my size. They assumed that someone maybe a little taller was going to win.
Right.
And so my dad was visiting at the time and I told him, I said, I'll give you these skis if you buy me a new pair of skis. And we went into the ski shop and I bought a pair of K2s. I gave him some skis and he bought me some K2s. They were the mini enemies at the time. And then I got on K2. And then I remember the first pair of skis I got was the mini enemies, which was like the following year's mini enemies or something with like the Public Enemy graphic on it. And then that was the beginning right there.
It was you and Callum, but everybody wanted to see Sean Pettit ski. It didn't matter what skier it was. They all wanted to come out and see what your run was. And back then you were a competition skier and your problem was you weren't heavy enough. I mean, we'd always joke about putting weights in your pocket because you get one good hit in the half pipe. And then after that, you couldn't really get any speed. What were the challenges for you being so much smaller than everybody else?
Challenges being smaller and I mean, essentially just that much lighter. I could bend like rubber and I could fall and get right back up, no problem. But to get speed in a half pipe, you need to carry momentum, and carrying momentum and stuff like that was not really a thing for me. I remember most competitions that we went to, either you or someone at the start gate would be slingshotting me in from my poles or pushing me from behind just to get an extra boost for one in the half pipe to get like a good first hit. But even like in the slopestyle when we were doing that, I mean, I always started higher than everyone else. Everyone else would be sessioning a jump, even just on a regular day. I'd always start like at least 20 feet higher. I figured it out. I knew that I was smaller and I knew I had to start higher. When I first got hooked up with Tanner, which was when I was 13, early season, we wouldn't go train in the half pipe or go ride the park. We'd go ride powder. And that's kind of how everything kind of transitioned. And we would ride the park too a little bit, but I never had like a training mentality on my mind. I'm like, I never once thought that the US Open is coming up. I should train. I didn't even know what training was. I didn't know what that meant. It wasn't in my vocabulary. It wasn't a thing that I had ever done before. So I wasn't going to start then. I don't know what I thought about the whole competition thing. I think that's maybe why I stopped competing by the time I was, 15, 16, which just kind of sounds crazy to stop when you're that age, but it's kind of what happened. I stopped, I think, when I was around 16 because I was so much more in love with just riding for exactly what you wanted to do and not to try to one-up, the guy who's the best in the half pipe or in the slopestyle. Luckily, I was pushing myself to get better at anything that we were doing. I think that was an easy transition for me to go from competing to just filming in the backcountry.
When I met you, I was blown away with how you seemed wise beyond your years. You knew what was up way more than your traditional 13-year-old.
I think I had to because I was put into a lifestyle that wasn't necessarily fit for every average 13-year-old, which was great. I think that shaped me into a mature adult quickly. It made me skip my childhood for sure and right into it. But at the time, I had no problem with that. When you're younger, you always want to be older. You want to hang with the older kids. Well, I definitely was, and I was doing everything that every other one of the older kids was doing. You're introduced to partying and that lifestyle for sure at a young age. Yeah, I think, every professional athlete knows what it's like. But if you don't, it's high pace lifestyle, traveling around, moving to different places, staying in, some amazing places, having everything at your fingertips, hotels, parties, girls. I mean, it was kind of all there and handed in a silver platter at the time, and it was awesome. But yeah, when I was 13, no, I think I knew better than that, than to be drinking and partying then. I think just being there was fun and not having to drink and party then. But definitely when I hit 15, 16, I was definitely partying 100%. That's all part of growing up as a professional skier.
The next thing I want to hit is Superproof.
Yeah.
What's going on with Superproof? I saw there was a post recently that made it look like Superproof might be still in existence, but I don't know what's going on with it.
Haha, yes. I'm keeping that under wraps. I can tell you Superproof was never a production company. It was just a label for us to do what we want to do creatively with our crew. And it was just an easy way to create a creative source. But I've always had other ideas for Superproof from the beginning. Video was ultimately an easy way to announce that there is a Superproof. But I can tell you now that the future of Superproof is not solely through video. But I'm not going to tell you exactly what that is. You will see over the next year.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing nothing on Superproof. Are you still working with the same crew? Is that Superproof crew together, like editors, filmers?
No, Superproof right now is me. That's it. And I think that's kind of how I want it to be for now.
Demand for something that's not existent has been part of your life for a long time with Red Bull, as you can't buy any Red Bull merchandise anywhere. But since you were 13, they've owned your head, it seems like. How does that work?
I couldn't tell you if in the contract it actually says that they own my head, but pretty much does. It's a great marketing thing they do. I mean, they create these hats and the helmets, and this logo is only to be worn by Red Bull athletes. You almost trick the viewer into perceiving this athlete as superior because he has something that you can't get. I can assure you that the hats are no different than most. They don't give you special powers or anything, but they definitely make you look pretty damn cool to everyone else who can't get them.
So that was the first part of Sean Pettit's interview, and that was recorded in 2016, and it gives you a little background on Sean Pettit's life and times and how he got to where he was today. And we're going to talk about today and what he's up to in just a minute. But first, I need to talk about my sponsors, and my first sponsor is Evo. And with winter right around the corner, it's time to get your gear, and there's no better place to do it than at Evo. Whether you are in one of their stores in Denver, Seattle, or Portland, or online, you will find that Evo has all the brands, an approachable staff, and the best website in the game. Evo is known for being founded by pro skier Bryce Phillips and creating culture in a space where it had started to disappear, and they also give back to local communities. Speaking of giving back, for listening to this show, Evo is going to give you 10% off your entire order. When you check out, enter the code capital TPM, the number 10, no spaces, and you'll get that 10% off when you check out of evo.com. My next sponsor is Rescue Water, and they are all about proactive recovery. What does that mean to you? Well, think of it like this. If you're really tired, you skip the coffee and you grab yourself an energy drink. Well, if you really need to hydrate, like when you're done working out, getting off the mountain, or going to bed after a big night, skip the sports drink and drink a cold Rescue Water. It replaces electrolytes much better than your traditional sports drink, and it's a difference you can really feel. Make Rescue Water work for you by heading over to rescuewater.com, that's RESQ water.com, and save 20% on a 12-pack case by entering the code RESQ water TPM. That's all one word. My next sponsor is Outdoor Research. And I've been wearing their outerwear since I moved to Seattle in 2000 because it works better than anything else on the market. It's developed and tested in the Northwest, so you know it's gear you can trust. OR is committed to improving your experience with exceptional product, so you don't have to think about your gear while you're out on your journey. But don't just take my word for it. In this year's Powder Magazine Apparel Guide, there was one brand voted Apparel of the Year. It was Outdoor Research. So when you're shopping for outerwear this winter, get the best. Head on over to outdoorresearch.com and get 15% off your order with the checkout code Powell, the number 15, all one word, all in caps. Those are my sponsors. Now we will get into Sean Pettit's life as it exists today. We are in Whistler, Canada. I'm sitting on Emerald Lake, which is a pristine lake here that Sean Pettit happens to live on. And I've been to a bunch of different pro skier houses. I would say Sean Pettit's is on the level of Sage Catabriga Olosa. It's a little compoundish, probably more in a more expensive place because we are in Whistler proper. But how many square feet is your house, Sean?
It's 3,000 square feet.
3,000 square feet. You've been here 7 years. He's got a gondola in the backyard, a basketball court, a gold toilet with plants growing out of it. So a little bit of everything. You had a very nice hot tub on your deck, but you said you didn't like it. So what'd you do?
Cut it in half, got rid of it.
Skiing's been great to Sean, and I'm stoked for you. I've known you since you were 9 years old, and you've been successful in your ski career. How long have you been a professional skier?
I've been a professional skier since I was 11 years old, 26 now. So that's 12 years?
Yeah, it's more, but I don't expect you to be so schooled if you've been a skier that long.
Yeah. I guess I missed out on some of those parts and made up for it in skiing.
School would be important if you sucked at skiing, but you were good at it, and anybody who's listening to the interview now has heard a re-edited version of what I did with you a long time ago. So they have the background of you growing up with no money, even though if you were to think of Sean Pettit, you wouldn't think that you lived in a basement on hand-me-down clothes and just had some ridiculous talent and was able to parlay that into where we are today. They've all heard that. And where we stopped, I think, was Red Bull owned your head. Since then, a shit ton has happened in your life. Mm-hmm. So the cliffhangers that we had were that Superproof was going to be something new with none of the old people involved. You also left us with a cliffhanger of your ski season was going to be a process of Instagram clips instead of the traditional ski format, because you had done that for 14 years or whatever. And there's another cliffhanger that I can't remember. There was a lot that you just weren't telling us back then. So far in our conversations here, you've been super open. We'll see what happens on the podcast. But that's where we left off, and we're going to find out about those cliffhangers. But before we do that, right after we had our podcast, or months after that, you had your first significant injury. And when I say that, you've had ankle issues, I think, before, but you tore up a knee and had to have a surgery. And tell us what went down.
Yeah, since we last talked and once...
Yeah, sorry for I didn't do any of the hellos or anything on the podcast, but we've been playing basketball. You can still see some smoke from the fire in the air.
Yeah.
We've been hanging out for a bit, and now we are on the podcast. So all the pleasantries that I usually have with other people, we've already done them, just off the record.
Yeah, FYI. Anyways, yeah, hell yeah. So where were we at? What was...
So you got hurt.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah.
I think it was the year of the Instagram clip.
Mm-hmm.
When did you get hurt in that season? This is 2 seasons ago?
Yeah, that's right. 2 seasons ago. Yeah, it was at the end of the year. It was when I was pretty much first really diving into snowboarding. It was the end of that season that I was like, I'm having so much fun this spring once snow softens up and gets a little warmer around here. You know, spring has sprung. I took that opportunity to just snowboard like every day.
Was this your no-boarding phase or snowboarding?
Snowboarding. I'm strapped in now.
Okay, because you did have a no-boarding phase as well.
For sure, yeah. That was pre-snowboard. But now, since we last talked, for sure, at the early stages, it was at the end of that season that we had last talked that I really kind of dove into snowboarding and was like, all right, I'm going to try to get better because I know I still suck. So I'm going to just try to get better. And I was kind of riding the park like every day, like the same as I was when I was skiing in the park when I was like 15, 16. I'm like reliving a little childhood moment here, getting right back into this new thing, snowboarding. And I was learning something every day, which is what was happening when I was a young kid on skis. So I was super into it, really motivated to do it.
Thinking about it all the time.
Oh yeah. And just like ride to the very end of the day, which I haven't done in a while on skis. I usually, don't ride from first chair to last chair. And
you did that for about 12 years and
I did.
Got sick of it.
I did. And I think just the re-ignition of having something that you're learning something every day just naturally makes you want to do it so much. And that's what was happening. And obviously, yeah, pushing it. And then like that, just blew my knee just on a quarter pipe. Didn't really fall too hard, but I'm not used to snowboarding yet. I don't even know how to fall on a snowboard yet. I hadn't done it enough. I hadn't fallen on these tricks I'm trying because I've never tried these tricks that I was trying.
Yeah. Just
trying to get better on the snowboard. And yeah, of course, bump in the road, tore my ACL, which was a bummer.
Yeah, because that normally happens to people what sport does that happen to?
I mean, soccer, it happens a lot, but skiing,
yeah,
it happens a lot more than snowboarding. And yeah, you'd think that maybe I would have done it skiing because it happens more frequently in skiing than in snowboarding. So it was crazy to blow my knee on the snowboard.
What are the phone calls like to your sponsors when you say, hey, I got injured, and they're like, what happened? Do you say, hey, I was getting so stoked on snowboarding? I mean, do you tell them what happened?
Honestly, it took me a while before I told anyone how I did it. At first, I was like, exactly that, your point. Is everyone going to be pretty pissed that I blew my knee on a snowboard when I should be skiing kind of thing? And so it took me a while to even figure out how to have that conversation. And I waited till I was fully almost recovered and knowing that I was going to be going back skiing soon and snowboarding until I had said how it happened. I didn't feel the need to ever tell anybody how exactly it happened. I just said that I tore my ACL and I'm going to be getting surgery now and I'm going to be recovering.
You have relationships with these brands, I would think, and no one said to you, oh man, what happened?
Yeah, I think eventually that conversation happened, but for sure in the beginning, you'd be surprised. Yeah, no one really ever questioned it. They're just like, oh. I think a lot of people felt really bad when you hurt yourself bad like that and have to get surgery. People feel bad and they don't feel like they should maybe I shouldn't ask how it happened. Like maybe it's like sensitive or something, you know?
Yeah, I feel like I expect it.
For sure. I think most people should. The first question I'd be like, well, how'd they do it? You know, if I heard someone that got hurt, first question would be how'd they do it? And surprisingly, it didn't happen too much until, I was almost recovered. So that's months later after it happened, for sure.
And how was downtime? Because you've never had like an injury that's taken you out. You're lucky you did it at the end of the season, so you weren't just looking out your window all day being pissed off.
Yeah.
What's that process like for you, a kid who's had everything come to him pretty easy? Not that you haven't worked hard, but I mean, everybody's wanted to do things for Sean Pettit because of your insane natural ability. And what was it like when everything shut off and you could barely walk?
Yeah, that was such a reality check. It was crazy. I just had never, in my entire career up until that point, I had never had really anything that has taken me out so significantly. And so I just never had that feeling before of what that's like mentally. And that was the hardest part, of course, getting through it mentally and hoping that you're going to go back to where you were physically. After surgery, after they cut you open and reattach you, you don't feel the same. So therefore, you have a lot of doubt in yourself. And that's just kind of the way injuries go for the most part. So yeah, it was sobering a little bit just to have that feeling on me for 9 months before I could touch my skis or snowboard again.
And then how is it when you do touch your skis or snowboard, more so your skis, because you are a paid skier who happens to be a snowboarder as well, and that'll be a whole segment of this conversation. But at this point, your sponsors expect you to go skiing the next year when you're healthy. And the year before, you were on the Instagram kick. How did that work out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Instagram whole deal went super well, and I loved everything we did with that.
Like, how many eyeballs were on Sean Pettit? Because if you put out a movie part, and that's what you traditionally do, whether you're making your own movie or you do something for somebody else or ski in someone's movie, if you're doing just a social media push where you're going to create great content in small bites, because that was your plan, and release it, and this is how my season goes, people are really going to get to know me and know what I'm doing. How many eyeballs do you think saw your content in that experiment?
I think quite a few. I mean, I think the eyeballs that were on me prior to doing it.
Like 3,000?
No, more.
Okay, yeah, I think a lot more, right?
Yeah. Like, I think there was sometimes 150,000 view counts, and, probably there's maybe 80,000 different people that saw that, which is like.
So that means you're making 80,000 unique impressions.
Apparently, according to if you.
The metrics that
by the stats that I was being delivered, yeah, it was crazy to think that I had never before put out content so immediately socially and were able to see such a quick response from it and excitement as it was happening. It was a little bit rewarding in a way as an athlete that usually is kind of in the dark for 6 to 8 months.
Your sponsors, how do they take that? Because the traditional sponsor model is, we're going to give you money, we're going to take 8 days of your year, we're going to send you on a few trips, and we're going to pay for this movie part that you're going to do. and you broke the mold. You saved them money. They didn't have to pay for a movie part, but you created content and did it your own way. How do the sponsors look at that? Are they like, hey, let's do that again? Or are they like, hey, we need a movie part?
For me, it was good timing to do that, when especially the first year that I was doing the Friendly Rippers, just, putting everything out on Instagram right away. It was just my motive. I didn't really have much more of a plan than that. Like, okay, well, we'll just film all the time, and then we'll just put it on the internet.
An edit a day, was that kind of the deal?
It was like kind of like an edit a week, and then sometimes just like throwing out clips on like the day you did something, you just put it up that day, put it on the internet and
throw it on against the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah. And that was like a really fun part about it. I wouldn't say it was much more like prefabricated than that. It was pretty simple and made it really easy for us to just have fun and maximize that. And I think the reason that for the past 2 years that I've been doing that, I think I'm kind of already on to the next tip a little bit, because now everyone puts everything on social media and that's the norm.
Yeah.
I'd just like to think that we can keep coming up with like new and creative ways to add to that to make it even better.
While everybody puts stuff up on social media now and it's the norm, what you were doing was just breaking the mold of the movie part. You were pretty much like, I don't want to go on all these planes and have all these obligations, but my filmer's here. I'm just going to have him follow me around. I have fun when I ski. I can put some cool shit out. People are going to like it. You believe that. And I won't say the lazy way because you're still working, but you're just not traveling to as many exotic locations. You're just living your life, which is a different way than most people have taken it before. And I would think that there would be some people that would rather you go the movie route.
For sure. I think this is such a funny area to talk about too, because the way professional athlete in general, not even ski or snowboard specific, I'm just talking professional athlete in general, has by the media in any sort of way. In our case, it was, a lot of the time through movies. And it was all fabricated to make these professional athletes look so exotic and lavish. I mean, if you think about it, the whole point of making these films that we were doing was go to the most crazy exotic location and fly in helicopters to get you places to like go skiing. Nobody has access to that. That is such a few and far beyond amount of people that can do that. So it was crazy that that's how we were portrayed for so long. And so I think what motivated me to just put things on social media right away as it was happening was it was very real and it was me. I wasn't planned to go on this trip to this place and do this shoot that we knew what was going to happen from it. It was just like, we're just going out day to day like I would, like everyone else would, and we're just going to have fun and we're just going to film it and show that this is the real life that we are actually living and want to live.
So it takes you how long to recover from your injury? I've got lost in there somewhere.
Yeah, the injury, I think I got lucky. Getting hurt in April, getting surgery right away, and recovering and back on snow 8 months later in that following December. So I really just had a summer and a fall to rehabilitate and get back to it. And honestly, the first couple weeks, 3 weeks I was back on snow, I didn't have a ton of confidence and wasn't sure how my whole season was going to go. And then it was just like a flick of a switch and felt like some scar tissue might have freed up a little bit. And all of a sudden my knee was feeling good and strong and I could put impact on it and do everything I was doing before and had no problems with it all year.
And there was a couple cliffhangers that we had in your last episode that we're going to talk about. Superproof being one of them.
Yeah.
This was your media company, I believe.
Superproof, when I had started with it, I don't even think I knew what it was at the time. I just started something called Superproof, and it was going to be its own thing.
You had a cool name. You really liked it.
Yeah, we had a name, Superproof. That's what the starting point was, and we did stuff with it. And a few of the things that we did was make some videos in the beginning.
And then you fired everyone. I don't know if you fired everyone or how that went down, but the Superproof Collective, we'll say, broke up. And Sean Pettit owns the rights to Superproof. And you're like, I'm going to reignite this in some other fashion. And here we are today. You're wearing a Superproof t-shirt. You've said you've spent a lot of time doing designs and making products, and you launched your website and everything, I think, in July. And I haven't looked at it yet because you just told me you launched it in July, so you haven't made that huge of a splash yet because I just didn't know about it, and I probably should. But tell me what's going on with Superproof Part 2.
Yeah. So, yeah, this has been a long process as well. I mean, we had already finished making our videos by the time we had last talked, and Superproof was in the works in the past couple of years, and yeah, just getting it going. But ideally, yeah, after I decided that I wanted to have what I originally came up with Superproof for, which was to be a streetwear clothing brand and have nothing to do with skiing or snowboarding or any sport. I'll get into kind of why I started it, I guess.
No one wants to know why you started it, Sean.
I know.
You probably told us that last time. You don't need to tell us again.
All right, perfect.
I left it in the last interview. I'm sure it's there.
Yeah, good. All right, let's leave it there.
Yeah.
So pretty much since then, we're talking now. We're talking what's going on.
What's going on? You're like selling products now. How many products do you have for sale on your site right now?
Superproof just got out, just put it online in July, and had been, designing and trying to make these products for about 2 years before I even realized what I was doing with it. But got 2 collections made up, super happy with it, love how it looks, and it's just something that I really get behind.
Superproof.com is the website.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to buy one of everything that you had,
yeah,
how many things would I be buying?
You'd be buying probably, like 10, 15 things maybe.
Yeah. 10 or 15.
We got some tees, hoodies, some caps, some socks, some polo tees, some pool shorts.
Do you have inventory here in Whistler?
Yeah.
So I don't even need to go to the web store because I'm at the store.
Store is located right here.
Nice. So I'm staying at the store, which is pretty amazing. So that's Superproof. Another cliffhanger that we had was you had a kind of wacky reality show. You were my first interview. So I wasn't going to call it a wacky reality show. I was going to try to tell you how to make it better. The only thing I could think of was making it more Bam Margera style and beating up your dad, which I think is always funny in your dad's character. So that had some potential. But maybe you weren't designed to be a reality star. I'm not sure. But what happened with that? I don't think you signed season 3 or 4 or whatever season it would have been.
We only did 2 seasons of the Keep Your Tips Up show. I think the idea behind it was told after 2 seasons. And yeah, at the time on that concept for that show, which was just my life at that time, don't think it had more life than 2 seasons personally. And thought it was good to end it on a good note. I think it was received well for the people that did like it. It wasn't my favorite show either.
Well, I'm not saying it was bad. I'm not saying it was good either. I'm saying, I guess you had all the players. You had the pro athlete, the pro athlete's brother, who's also a pro athlete. They're friends. But you didn't have the really, really funny guy that just made everybody laugh the whole time. And
for sure.
Like the Stifler, the someone that you needed to make that thing go.
Always. I couldn't agree more. There's that very well could have used that character. I think the intention was for my dad to be that character. He just wasn't quite as good on camera as we thought he was going to be.
Well, one thing about your dad, what's his nickname?
Groovemeister.
I've met him once, but I used to hear stories from you in your childhood. I don't know if he worked in the carnival area or what he did, but we used to always not make fun of you, but laugh because you said you worked in something that was shaped like a lemon. And then it opened up and you sold lemonade and maybe you did funnel cakes as well. I can't remember.
Yeah, just lemonade out of the giant lemon. But yeah, me and my brother, we worked in the giant lemon. Also in the poutine machine shack.
Was that at the carnivals as well, the poutine machine?
Oh yeah, poutine machine was all over the East Coast.
And was your dad doing the carnival circuit?
It was more or less festivals, carnivals, music shows.
So your dad knows all kinds of people, from the music business to the carny.
For sure, or at least from being around it for a long time, which he did for a very long time. And it was only in the Ontario, Quebec area was where he would do it. And he'd do it for 3 months during the summers. And he was a dude in a hot food booth serving food.
Yeah, I can imagine he partied.
Oh, yeah. I'll give you the best part of being childhood and working in a hot poutine shack all summer was the exhibition in Ottawa. Can't remember what year it was, but it was Rolling Stones, one of their later concerts for sure, but we were hyped on Rolling Stones at the time, me and my brother.
Okay.
Working the Hot Poutine Shack. They're playing in the stadium. We were located perfectly where we could sneak right out the back of the Poutine Shack, right under a fence, and we were on the concert grounds, right front stage, Rolling Stones, me and my brother. Like, I was like 14, he was like 15, 16, and right up front.
I was hoping you were going to say that they closed the poutine machine shop down so Mick and Keith could have a private poutine sitting. And I was going to be like, yeah, that's the shit. Yeah, thanks for telling that story. I mean, it's cool you snuck in the show and saw them really close.
Yeah, that's kind of was the most glamorous thing about the working the Hot Poutine Shack. Nothing ever was more glamorous than that. It was just greasy and dirty.
Last time we talked, it was a big contract year for you. This year, another big contract year, I think. So whose contracts are up?
Yeah, we're still all with the same brands. Nothing's changing over.
Do you have deals through this season, or do you have to sign new deals? Where are you at in terms of like your money?
We're in a contract negotiation year.
That sucks every time.
Yeah, it always does, for sure. Yeah, it's never the fun part about, working with cool people.
So who do you have to renew with?
This year, it's both K2 and Oakley renewal year.
My opinion from the outside is there's a big asterisk in both of those. From my side, it seemed like Oakley had a ton of changes. K2's had a ton of changes. And you're still like a marquee guy for both of those guys. But you're probably forging new relationships with both brands, I would think, at this point. And it's an interesting time for you personally. One thing that's really interesting about where your season went last year, you get back from the injury and you go back to snowboarding just as much as you're skiing, I think. I mean, you're really fired up on snowboarding, and just because you're paid to ski, it's not like your contracts say that you can't snowboard. And I'm sure K2's sending you snowboards and product to do whatever you want with. So does snowboarding become last season's passion for you? Is that what you're doing more than skiing?
Yeah, last season for sure. There was more time spent on a snowboard for me, purely based off of just I was eager and motivated to prove myself on a snowboard.
And I would say in the ski industry and the snowboard industry for that matter, I worked in it for a long time, and there's always been sort of a rivalry. At first, skiers looked down upon snowboarders as they were a new sport, and skiers showed them no respect. And then snowboarders had an attitude back because they were like, hey, fuck you, we're just using the same mountain. And that rivalry's never gone away. You've never seen too many skier snowboarder projects that really go off. I mean, I guess Jimbo Morgan would be an example of a snowboarder and a skier who was able to do it at a high level. Same with Sean Palmer. Jimbo would be a skier first, Sean Palmer a snowboarder first. Regardless of where I'm going with that, there hasn't been the skier that has started snowboarding and gotten any respect from anybody in the snowboard media or industry, it seems like, until this year when, you're not a badass pro level snowboarder by any means. You have a fun, playful style on the snow and whatever you ride. So how is this all evolving? I mean, is it living with snowboarders and riding with them a lot? How does this happen?
How does just snowboarding for me in general, how did I get to this point?
Not how did you get to this point? Because you like snowboarding a lot, but to get better at the rate you're getting better. I know you live with a bunch of snowboarders, like the man boys happen to be men at a skier's house. And are you riding with these guys a lot?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, we're all walking out the door at the same time. We're all going to the same place. And yeah, look, most of the time we ride together. I'd say most of my friends in Whistler are snowboarding as well. So yeah, it's for sure plays an influence on why I want to be doing that with them,
Are there any skiers ever mixed into your crew, or do you ever go ski with the snowboard crew?
I actually, now will kind of rarely go ski with my snowboard group of friends.
Do they make fun of you?
No, not at all. It's something that they know I'm a skier first and just starting snowboarding. And now I don't even have to talk about that much. And they're used to me on a snowboard that they sometimes even forget that I ski when I'm with my snowboard friends because I'm just snowboarding with them. And then I'll have little crew of ski friends that I'll usually go ski with them. It just kind of makes sense.
Do any of your snowboard friends ever try skiing?
Never.
Never, not once.
No, I mean, I've seen them, a couple of them once, and that's pretty much about it. But yeah, it's pretty rare. It's more like, hey, look, so-and-so's like just on skis for like a run, like how funny it is. And then that's it. It's not like this person's trying to ski or anything.
And the snowboarding stuff you're putting out, I mean, while I say you're not like pro level, you're not going to go hit a park jump and do like the big doubles those guys are doing. I'm not thinking.
No.
Nice big styly tricks are kind of not big. 3s, 5s, I would think is like your wheelhouse, or
I'd say that's maxing it out right now. It's pretty much just do some grabs and a couple 360s here and there. And for the most part, just kind of find soft snow as much as possible. I've found out that powder on a snowboard is really, really fun, and didn't know that until I started snowboarding. So
they're really wide.
Yeah. Snowboard in POW is like a K2 pontoon skis in POW. It's a similar kind of vibe.
Yeah, it's just wider than them.
Yeah, exactly. So snowboarding in POW mainly for me has done my fix of like why I keep coming back to it.
Okay. I'm going to take a break real quick to talk about a couple sponsors.
Yeah.
And my next sponsor is Spy Optic. And they have been independent since '94 and taking a playful approach to everything they create. They're killing it on the innovation game this season with their new electrochromic one-lens technology. If you haven't heard about the Ace EC goggle, it packs the power of 3 lenses into one by changing tints with the touch of a button. It's crazy innovation that creates one goggle for any light. It's the best goggle on the market, period. Check out spyoptic.com for all the details on the game-changing EC, as well as their newest athlete signature models and sunglasses. For listening to the show, the good folks at Spy are going to give you 20% off their entire site. When you check out of their site, use the code capital TPM, the number 20, all one word at checkout, and you will get that 20% off. My final sponsor is the 10 Barrel Brewery based out of Bend, Oregon. They are all about drinking beer outside and supporting snow sports and culture. And this year, they are doing something that no beer has ever done before. Not only are they creating a Pray for Snow lager, they've produced their own ski and snowboard film, Pray for Snow, featuring riders like Ben Ferguson, Eric Jackson, and Lucas Walks. They're truly giving back to snow culture, and you should truly give back to them by drinking their beer, preferably a lot of it. To find out more about the movie tour, beers, and pubs, head on over to 10barrel.com. Those are those sponsors. So we're talking about snowboarding, and Powder put out an article, and it's funny. Powder put out an article about you about a year and a half ago, and they put one out with you about a week ago, and the title was like, Sean Pettit Snowboarding Now, or something like that. So the same person wrote them. And the first one was funny to me because I read it and it didn't really seem like the Sean Pettit I knew. It made you seem like a rock star who only skied when it was good, and if there were cameras out, you didn't have time for skiing or anything else. And it didn't paint the picture of the kid I'd known, but that's someone else's impression, and who am I to say, well, maybe you were like that to her, whatever. I wasn't here. What did you think about that article when it came out?
I definitely was not happy about it, for sure. I was hoping that wasn't me because of the way the article made me out to be. I don't think it really made me second guess because I knew who I was, but it's crazy what everyone else is going to read about you as someone's opinion of you. So I guess you got to try and put your best opinion on everyone you possibly can if they're going to be the ones who are going to be talking about you to everybody,
Yeah. But what's funny to me is you did an article last week talking about your snowboarding, and it was the same writer. I knew that you probably didn't like the first article. I mean, no one would if they read that about themselves, I don't think. And then you're like, yeah, I'll do another interview with you.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I had something to patch up with this writer based off of this person's opinion it had me before that I didn't like. I was hoping I could fix that opinion on that person, or just hopefully in our talk the next time that we did, it was going to go in the right directions for the right reasons, and we were going to talk about the right things in a good way, in a positive way, which we totally did.
So it was an interesting article that came out, the snowboarding one, and I look at you. You're one of those established skiers. I say established. You're 26 years old. You've been a professional since you were 11, a paid professional who's made pretty decent money your whole career. And at this point, if you want to snowboard and you're getting to a level where the brands can use you in snowboard stuff too, and it's not fake, it's still authentic, and it's just like you're a fun dude who can do both, that's pretty cool to me. You're one of the only people that can do that because your legend in ski and everything that you've done in ski is established. You don't have to do those gnarly trips anymore if you don't want to, just based on, I feel like, your time in there. And Not saying you're riding out your career, you still have to put out good content, but it can be style-based instead of gnarly-based. But back to the sponsorship, which we've talked about a few different times. What do the sponsors think about this? Do you have anyone who supports that you are going to spend, I mean, I'm not going to say you're going to spend more time on your snowboard than your skis this season, but I'm going to say you're going to spend more time on your snowboard than your skis this season. So do you have sponsors that support that are like, snowboard as much as you want, Sean, just get us content?
Not really. No. I mean, it's never going to go exactly how you want it to go. I think that's just like starting basis. Yeah, I definitely have a lot of pushback from sponsors on them wanting me to ski more.
K2 hasn't used any social media content of yours in like 2 years. So I don't see you skiing on K2's social media, but I've seen you snowboarding a bunch on K2's social media. So it seems like they're embracing it a little bit.
Yeah, that's been a really rad way for me to see it, is that the snowboarding side of it has really got behind me snowboarding, of course. Like, I'm going from being a skier for so long and known as a skier, and I'm snowboarding. I think there's like definitely going to be a favorite side here where there's a lot of people that are skiers that are stoked that I'm snowboarding too, but I think there's even more snowboarders that are stoked about me snowboarding.
I don't know how many snowboarders you're going to have cross over to ski.
Yeah, no, yeah.
But I think there's the potential that you could have a skier buy into a K2 snowboard because they like you, the skier, and they know you snowboard too, and they're looking to buy that. I think that, I don't know. I see that happening way before I find a snowboarder saying, I want a pair of K2 skis now.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's just the way it is. It's just the way the cookie crumbles. If you're going to switch over, most people do that way. I'm not saying everybody does. A lot of people go from snowboarding to skiing as well, but a lot of the time, at least people I know go from skiing to snowboarding.
Red Bull, I'm sure, doesn't have a problem with this. They want you to be who you're going to be. They just want you to be the best at whatever the hell you want to do at this point, because you're a known entity in your categories, I think.
Yeah, and it's not just Red Bull. I'd say from sponsorship-wise, everyone is supportive of the idea, which is really cool to begin with. I think if it was some other brands, they would not be so enthused by me snowboarding at all. But luckily, I think now that I've put in a couple of years, especially, of proving that I want to keep doing it, I think that's getting me some brownie points with just my sponsors to say, hey, you know, me skiing and snowboarding is good for everybody here. I'm learning something new. I'm like creating new content because I have this new device to get down the mountain with that is opening up a whole new world for me. I'm personally insanely motivated again because of it. And it's just something new. That should be the question that answers everything right there. That it's just, hey, introducing something new into your career is the same as probably the hype that once Michael Jordan decided to play Major League Baseball, that there was some hype around it. And of course he didn't succeed and he sucked at baseball, but he was still got somewhere with his basketball career and was like, hey, I got to try something else. I wonder if I can be just as good as that as I was at this.
How often do you compare yourself to Michael Jordan?
That's the only time I've ever done that. And I feel really sick right now because, yeah, obviously I'm in no comparison to Michael Jordan other than a similar athletic situation going from one to the other. That's the only reference. I'm going to be very clear with that.
We played basketball.
Yeah, we did.
You weren't Michael Jordan caliber by any means.
No, definitely not. Far from. I'm only 5'6.5".
So the question that everybody wants to know now, what are your plans for this season?
Yeah, the ye old question. Yeah, I love that question. As if everyone makes plans so many months before the snow flies. I think it's crazy, but I usually don't make plans a week in advance usually, so it's hard for me to make plans so far ahead, but I have some ideas. For sure, I have some ideas, and I think a lot of ideas are coming into my head right now of what I should do this season.
And I'd say this is late for a lot of people to come up with ideas. You do things a little bit differently than a lot of people.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
The Seths of the world, when he was having to have a calendar, which I don't think he has to have anymore. I talk about him a lot because he will never do an interview with me, and I'm sure he's just like, God, he's fucking talking about me again. So I think that's kind of funny.
Sick, I like it.
But you'd already know his whole year, and he'd be like, dude, I only have days in March from this date to this date. You'd be like, okay.
Yeah, that's correct. I could never do that.
Yeah, that's never been your style, I don't feel like.
No, it just wouldn't work. I'm just not that kind of a head planner at all. I just
You're part Groove Meister, part Rainbow Medicine Retreats. So.
Yes, that's true. I actually, usually enjoy going in fairly planless, and a lot of the time it's just, you hear about somewhere that's going to be sick, and it's kind of our duty to go chase it. So we'll kind of leave it up to the winter to decide what we do and where we go and how we do it. But yeah, I have some base bone ideas that I know for sure I'm going to keep snowboarding a bunch, and I'm going to sprinkle some skiing in there as duty calls. But yeah, I think my goal is to maintain having fun on skis and get better at snowboarding.
Skiing is no problem with you snowboarding, I wouldn't think. But on the snowboard side, it's different. How do you think the industry and media are looking at this, per se?
There is a divide of sides here, essentially. It's crazy because I've never been in a position where I have an audience that is two-sided, really. I mean, I think the people that just didn't like my skiing ever probably just never followed me or never said anything about me, I just wasn't one of their favorite skiers or whatever. But now I have a lot of skiers who are fans of me skiing that don't like me snowboarding, of course.
And they reach out to you and let you know?
All the time. Oh, yeah. It's usually just through social media, I think.
Anything hateful?
Yeah.
Give us the best one.
I mean...
Anybody ever call you a douchebag? Fuck you? Anything?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All of that. It's really funny. I find it super entertaining.
If you don't like Sean Pettit snowboarding, let him know.
Yeah, voice up.
Snowboarders, if you don't like him skiing, let him know as well. Be as mean as you possibly can.
Or if snowboarders don't like me snowboarding, because that I have yet to hear much about. So I'd love to see if there's some people. I bet you there's gotta be,
man.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, he's fucking snowboarding. He's a skier, man. We can't let them take everything.
That opinion is out there. I know it.
First, they took our snowboard parks.
Yeah. Yeah, let me know. Let me know how much you don't like me doing it. I would love to hear it. But realistically, I don't really give a fucking shit what other people think about me doing it. I'm stoked to do it because I really like it and it's really fun for me to do. And that's purely my enjoyment and involvement in snowboarding, is that I really like doing it.
All right. So we are at the part of the show that I like to call inappropriate questions. Normally, I come super prepared for these, but you're the first interview in Canada, and I didn't have anybody record questions for you. I think I did that on our last one too, but I prepared for that one. I didn't prepare for this one, so it makes me come up with stuff off the top of my head. So my first inappropriate question will be, in all of your travels, ski or snowboard, and most of them are going to be ski, you've made a lot of great friends, right? Like you've lifelong friends. Who is the person that you are just praying is not on the trip, and you just don't like them and don't want to have to be around them, and really don't even care if you have to say it? And given you're probably not a mean person that really wants to call anybody out, but who's the person that you would be bummed with and why if they were on a trip?
Oh, man. I would phrase it as there's really only a select people that I would be psyched to go on a trip with, to be honest.
Okay, who would you be psyched to go on a trip with?
Oh, are we going to go that? Yeah, I mean, if we can go that way, because there's a lot of people that...
Just give us the top 5 that you don't want to go on a trip with.
Okay. Oh, man, I don't know.
Because then you're not saying one's the worst. You're just putting 5 people in there.
Shit. It's not like it would be the worst ever. To go on a trip is a privilege anyways. So, of course, like any trip I go on, usually it's like, oh, I'm going to have a good time. Like, we're going on a trip. Place is fucking sweet, whatever. But, of course, yeah, if, I had to go somewhere sweet with, like, Nick Gepper, I'd be kind of bummed. We just have different views and different values. And
do you know him?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. You've met a few times and talked?
Yeah, and yeah. Hung here and there just at a maybe X Games party or something. But yeah, the time that...
Yeah, you're different people. I can see that.
Yeah. If we're going to have to say a name, I think I'll just leave it at that.
You're such an asshole, dude. You're going to hurt his feelings. He listens too. Yeah. Nick, if you're out there, dude, I love you.
I like you too, Nick. I just don't think it would be the best if we went on a trip together.
And you're probably skiing a lot of different terrain.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it would be the worst because I don't like him. I still like Nick. I think he's a great dude and has gotten a lot of shit in his career, and it'd be shitty for me to shit on him too. I just think ski-wise, we wouldn't see eye to eye on skiing, really.
Kind of changed your answer a little bit, but that's okay.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Inappropriate question number 2. You live in a house full of, I guess you're not an eligible bachelor, but is the rest of the house, are they eligible bachelors? They have girlfriends?
Matt does not have a girlfriend, but me and Jody are all wifed up.
All right. So you live in a house with the man boys.
Yeah.
What's the dumbest shit you've seen those guys do?
Every day they do dumb shit. But the dumbest thing, I'm not going to even name which one it was, but at one point I had to tell one of the roomies that I didn't like this girl he was hanging out with so much that I told him that she couldn't come over anymore. So that was pretty harsh of me to say and do, but she just kind of sucks, so.
Did you charge these guys rent?
Yeah.
And was he like, hey man, but this is like my girlfriend?
It wasn't his girlfriend,
Okay.
Which is kind of why I felt obliged to say it as a friend. I was not looking out for myself here. I was looking out for him, as in the sense like, hey, you're hanging out with the wrong chick, and I got to let you know that right now.
What made her the wrong chick?
She just didn't mesh with anyone, including him, and was just like a really annoying, not a very sweet person. And that sounds so harsh, and I hate that I say that, but I just knew he had to eject out of that relationship at that point. And from a friend perspective, this is not, like I said, it was not anything selfish to do with anything else. It was just like, hey.
It's not very often that a friend helps another friend pull out early, but it sounds like you were a good friend there, so that's nice.
I hope so, yeah. I think he's definitely more stoked without her.
All right, well, she's dead to this house, and we will go to inappropriate question number 3. You've got a brother, Cal Pettit. I'm going to interview Cal as well. You've always been, I hate to use the word famous because you're not like famous, but you're ski famous. And yeah, going to different towns, ski towns, a lot more people would be like, oh, that's Sean Pettit. Cal always had to feel like there had to be something that he felt, because it's rare that your little brother is better than you all during childhood and all during life. Not that your styles are different, whatever, but on paper, if there was a draft and I had to pick one of you, I'm going to pick you first and pick Cal second. And he's had to feel that way his whole life. Have you guys ever had a conversation about that now that you're older and talked about that dynamic ever?
No, we never really like talked about that side of things ever. And like we both knew it was there, and I always felt awkward when that would happen sometimes, But
sometimes when that would happen, and then he would be able to beat you up later in the day and like make little Shawnee cry. Did you ever throw it in his face?
No, never.
He did beat you up and make you cry sometimes.
For sure, yeah, all the time.
And I would think the only thing that you had in your arsenal at that point would be your skiing.
I always just fought back as hard as I could. And that wasn't really relevant, like that case of maybe whatever the popularity. That wasn't like really relevant until we were kind of past like being like little kids. Like when I was 16, he was 18. That was kind of when that kind of like divide was a little more like apparent.
Was that when the sponsor things happened?
Like he would get dropped off of a certain sponsor and I would stay on them kind of thing. That was, I felt weird at that time.
Yeah. I'm going to ask him all about that, because there had to be a period of a year or two where he must have thought he might have had to go like really work.
Yeah, no, he did for sure. And then it probably took him another year, and then eventually he like fully reinvented himself and in his own light, and we weren't just like looked at as the brothers anymore, which we both really liked.
When you were younger?
Yeah, up until a point we were like very much came as a package deal kind of thing for a lot of the times, and we both kind of like started to resent that a little bit. And as soon as that kind of divide happened, I think at first it was kind of awkward and weird and wondering why it was happening, and then it was all like we realized like pretty quickly both that we're like, oh, this is sick. It's good that we're not with each other every single day. Like we like each other more now, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. All right, man. Well, that's our podcast. I want to thank you for your time. I'm going to be spending a lot more time with you because I think we're going to go meet up with Shane Zox, and we're going to eat ramen, which I will eat, and we are going to have beer.
It's going to be good, I promise.
So that was time with Sean Pettit, and it seems like he's at a crossroads in his career. While I won't say he is bored with skiing, it seems like he has a lot more interest going on in snowboarding, which is great if you make your money being a pro snowboarder, but Sean doesn't. He makes his money being a pro skier. The really cool thing about all of this is that Sean is the first person in the modern era to try and do both of these, and so far it looks like he's being received well, and that's all he can ask for at this point. It should be known that when I was leaving Whistler, Sean received his K2 contract and he's back on board with America's great ski and snowboard maker, so it looks like it's working out for Sean for another 2 years at least. Anyways, I want to thank you for listening and ask you to review me on whatever platform you listen to me on. If you're on an iPhone, it's super easy to rate me and it only takes a minute. Here's what you need to do. Hit your podcast icon, search for the Powell Movement, click on the Powell Movement graphics, scroll down to where you see the stars and touch your finger to 5 stars and you are done. You can review me as well, but that is definitely going above and beyond the Call of Duty. If you're on an Android, I have no idea what you should do, but please do it, and if you figure it out, please let me know how you did it, and I'll let everyone else know how to review me on an Android. Finally, I want to thank my sponsors for making the show happen. They are Evo, Rescue Water, Outdoor Research, Spy Optic, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Have a great week, everyone.